Welcome to the Real Estate Power Play Podcast, your launch pad for skyrocketing success in real estate investing. I'm your host, Gabe Rodarte, alongside Mark Monroe. We're ready to bring you transformative stories, groundbreaking strategies, and the insider secrets of real estate giants. Get ready to accelerate your investment journey and become a true power player in the world of real estate. Hey guys, welcome to the Real Estate Power Play Podcast. I am your host, Gabe Rodarte, brought to you from this awesome city of Houston, Texas. And we have an awesome guest today. We have the man, AG, who's been a good friend of mine for quite a few years, known him through just the Houston network, and just seeing him grow and bloom as far as a developer in commercial real estate and the stuff he's been doing. I've known him from the single family days. And so we're going to dig into today and just bring you as much knowledge and information to help you grow your business. Today, we're going to really dig into what he's doing right now, but he has a really unique story. If you guys want to follow it and see some of the stuff we don't know who he is, we'll dig into a little bit of that. But AG, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, Manny. That's it's been a while since I've done this. I've been so in the zone of things. In fact, the funny thing is, all of us have these Alexa type devices at home, and they play these recurring memories and photographs, what have you, from the past. And just yesterday, the last real estate conference that we hosted when I ran Real Acquisitions, which is another story, was literally the day before they shut down the rodeo because of the COVID scare.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was looking at that photograph and those faces, and it's been a while. Believe it or not, but since that day, I've not been to any of the local real estate thingamajiggies. So yeah, it's
really
good to
interesting.
reconnect.
You were doing an event. That was the last. You did the event, or you got shut down?
No. We did the event. We were the last real estate event that happened in Houston before COVID.
Wow.
And yeah, the Real Acquisitions event ran, for like, I think 11, 12 years.
Wow.
Yeah. In our heyday, we were up to almost like 800, 900 people attendance. It was a good. You've been there, so
yeah. One of the largest events in Houston metro area.
Correct.
And
fun times.
Good times. Those are the days where you wanted more people to show up. Now we just do podcasts.
That's right. Quality over quantity.
Yeah, that's right. So that's interesting. So we could dig into that. So it's almost, because I remember talking to you a little bit afterwards, and you were in this transition of what you were doing, developing and stuff like that. And I remember having a good conversation that impacted my life, because took me a couple of years later, but I started taking suit also. But that was really a time where that helped you pivot, right? Pivot your strategy, pivot what you're doing, and saying, what's the best use of your time and energy?
Right. Absolutely. I mean, I had started active real estate construction in 2012, actually. And then we picked up from the residential route to commercial in 2016. But my IT or my data business was still concurrently running. And yes, COVID was that final plug where we made a difficult, because it's something that you run for more than a decade. It's difficult to pull the plug on that.
Right.
But so emotions aside, COVID was that final. How do they say it? The straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
That's
awesome.
Yeah. So then we went full time, and no regrets. Very thankful that we did it at that time.
Yes, for sure. So what did that look like? And for those who don't know, Real Acquisitions, huge, like all over. You're in multiple states, weren't you?
Yeah, we were.
Yeah, in multiple states. You're doing these events, transition. Now you have this pivot. You're doing development type stuff. But you were doing development of housing and stuff too, higher end homes. All that was all I remember you really focusing on. And then you got into doing multifamily, which we'll go into more in a little bit. So that transition that happened, what was that? That the transition, what did that look like?
It wasn't really a transition. It was, I mean, just like any other entrepreneur, like yourself and like a million of us in town. You have multiple things going on. You have multiple pans in the oven.
Right.
But one thing I have been blessed with is usually I quit pretty fast. The emotional attachment to things that don't work because of a false sense of time or money invested. That syndrome, thankfully, is
Right.
not in me. And so I was, real acquisitions, while it made tremendous sense for the better part of, so we started in 2008. For those of you who do not know what real acquisitions was, it was essentially a data platform that mined off-market deals. And we started in 2008, actually. And I think we were probably the only platform that did what we did in terms of lead generation for many, many, many years. But we were outpaced and out technologied, if that's
Right.
a word, by other platforms and other companies that were willing to throw in the money that frankly I did not have the financial wherewithal to throw in that level of technology in that platform.
Right.
So yeah, it was on its natural death anyway, because there was a better platforms that were providing I wouldn't necessarily say better data, but definitely cheaper alternatives to what we were doing in terms of economics. So, the time was to pull the plug and move on to things that were making sense to me in the times. And, as and when we get into it, I can tell you the story of how that construction or that real estate aspect of my career started. But so it wasn't really a pivot. It was just something
Right.
that I decided to focus on versus doing chasing after the next shiny object.
I like that what you said. You have a skill to quit quickly.
Yeah,
Actually,
I do. I've always done that. I've always uh, I mean, I think it'll be foolish to say that anything and everything that I have done has worked out. But what has worked out for me is that when I do realize something is not going to work out, uh, usually I have the realization pretty quick and I get out pretty quick.
yeah. Yeah, that's really good. And especially with what we do. I mean, there's times where I missed the deadline on, and I'm thinking about this because this recently happened in this past year. I missed the deadline on a cancellation of contract.
Hmm.
But if I would have kept that deal, the person who kept that deal probably got slaughtered because the rehab was, there's some
Oh,
stuff we found.
wow.
But I lost the earnest money also. But the
Bigger
time,
scheme of things, it's small loss compared to what
yeah,
you would
yeah,
have,
yeah,
right?
exactly. It's a small loss compared to the time, the energy, the other stuff. And I think that we can get emotionally attached to some of those things. I missed the deadline. I don't know, it's by a couple of hours or whatnot. And the broke, there was actually a realtor involved. And the whole point is, they were nickel and diming, they're going over the hours and stuff. And like, when did you let us know? And I'm like, listen, like in the back of my mind, I'm going, I'm just glad I don't have this property because it just looked like it would be a train wreck. And
Yeah.
a lot of people don't know also is that the 3 or 6 months or 4 months that it throws you off the track trying to make sure you don't lose.
Recoup the deal, yeah.
Yeah. So what do you have advice for people like that? Like this is a skill that you have. Did you develop this skill? I would want to dig into it because I think that this is something that it might look like shiny object, but you have a tactic, you have a tool to go about doing it. What is that that's different?
Well, it's actually nothing really complicated. I just think like an engineer. By training, I'm an engineer, which is you define a breaking point and you think about that breaking point in the beginning. And when you get to that breaking point, you just cut your ties and move on. There's no emotional attachment. There's no ifs and buts. There's no, oh, let me stretch the line a little more. You're just very, very objective about it from the beginning. And I mean, I started a concrete business in 2020. Sounded like a wonderful idea, but same exact thing, which is I had a breaking point, which in context of numbers meant that there are three stages to any business, where there'll be negative cash flow, there'll be a neutral cash flow, meaning you're not making any money, but you're not bleeding either. And then stage three, which very few businesses get to, if you have the scale and the wherewithal to last through phase one, phase two, which is you actually make money. So, the issue is that most businesses just alternate between phase one and phase two constantly. We're losing
Right.
money, but we're not making money. We're losing money, but we're not making money. Sometimes we make a little money,
Right.
but the stability of the business generating positive cash flow, very few businesses get to. And in my case, to round up your question, the breaking point was these are the number of months I'm willing to stay in
Mhm.
essentially phase two.
That's
Similarly with phase one, these are the number of months I'm willing to stay in phase one, where I have a set amount of negative cash flow that I'm willing to eat, and there's a select number of months where I'm willing to linger around in the business that does not make money. But if we don't get to stage three by so and so time, then and obviously it's not an instinct, it's not a sixth sense. It's a very objective decision based on data, based on talking to other people who ran their businesses, based on a lot of due diligence that you do in the beginning.
I love it.
Yeah.
I
I
love
mean,
it.
same thing that you do in development, right? I'm pretty sure at some point of time we'll get into development, but I think the same model, or for that matter, any other developer who knows what they're doing does. There's a tremendous amount of time and money that goes in saying no. For every right now we're spending almost $30,000-$40,000 a month in saying no in our due diligences, between the civil
Wow.
engineers, between earnest monies, between civil reports, between surveys. Oh my gosh, surveys between that's the amount of money you spent to say no.
I think that's super key. You're looking at it a perspective, and that's something that whenever we look for, because we've been working on shopping centers, industrial flex, and when these properties come across, we're really looking at a way to say no on the property, right? What are the key factors that just make us not feel good about this property, or we have
Right.
already seen that they don't align with what we're looking at raising capital? Even like it's harder to raise capital in war zone areas where someone's like, I'm not sure I really want to let my money out in something like that, you know. Um, so those are some key things that I've seen also, especially when I go into more commercial stuff, is we used to do it all the time. We still do it. I mean, it's so second nature with single family now that, or residential, that I could look at anything and say no pretty quick. Um, but you have to get those reps in, right? And so how do you, as far as a group goes and what you've been doing and grow forward, how do you see getting those reps in now? Because you're looking at, is it just land acquisition that you're doing, that you're developing, or you're not doing full and gut remodel of buildings, or
We've never done remodels. Oh,
okay.
well, let me rephrase. I've done one remodel in my life, and that was such a effing disaster. I promise I'm never going to touch remodels again. So, and again, it's to each his own.
Right.
But my personality and I guess the soul of my business is based on control. We like control. We like predictability. We are okay with small margins. We like low risk products and things that we're doing. We are okay with average returns. We're not looking to hit the ball out of the park. So new construction works uh, for that model. So
Can
we
you
do not
explain
do any
that a little?
remodels.
Can you explain it a little further for those who don't know? And the way that, like, I would phrase it would be different, of like the higher the risk, the higher return, the lower the risk, lower the return. How do you see it as far as a group, and how do you explain it to others when you really talk about risk reward?
Well, so the main difference between remodeling versus new construction is remodeling, you are dealing with a higher set of variables. To make things simple, the easiest way of understanding that analogy, and I'm definitely not suggesting that it's something as simple as that, but remodeling, the simplest analogy for those of you who watch HGTV is when you
Right.
rip open the wall, what comes behind the wall, no one
Yeah.
really knows. So that's the simplest way of understanding. And of course, there are a lot more complexities associated with that in terms of time, in terms of the
Right.
scope of work, in terms of the labor. And to me, it was not worth the time and the money in chasing after those deals. The the risk in the new construction is there, definitely significantly higher for those people who do not know how to underwrite the deals, and who don't have the capital backbone of buying some of these parcels. Uh, but the fact that the deal size is so significantly larger than a lot of remodels, what essentially happens is the eyes that are involved on the project, from banking institutions to seasoned investors to underwriters to risk insurance to very, very seasoned subcontractors. A lot of eyes, good professional eyes are involved in making sure that those risks are reduced to a very large extent. So yes, that's the reason we like new construction, because and again, it also eliminates the playing field when, not that I've done too much of it, like I said, but if in the Houston market, when I was running my data company, our estimate was about 4 to 5,000 remodelers in the Houston market. And I'm talking
Wow.
about serious ones. I'm not talking about guys that do, one or two remodels here and there, but 4 or
Wow.
5,000 serious remodeling companies. And in context of big development operations, I'm talking about, 50 million plus. You're talking about maybe 75, 80 companies. So just the
Wow.
level playing field becomes very different.
Okay, that makes sense. And that also makes sense whenever you walk, you like if you're driving around town, you're like, oh man, that's the same construction company that's over here doing this construction job,
Right,
right? They're pretty big establishments.
right.
I want to go over something that you've talked about before, and you're really hinting on it now, of just the power of team in this environment of development and just commercial in general, and the power of team. There's nobody solo in this business, right? At this level. Um, can you share a little bit about what your philosophy and your thought process of how you see team differently than you might have saw like prior to doing so much of the development?
Well, I wouldn't say necessarily that the team environment, the mindset is any different, because even when you're doing remodels, a lot of teams that you need to manage or have. It's just that the easiest way of looking at it, Gabe, is at some point in an entrepreneur's life, you have to stop being a hustler and start being a strategist. In the remodeling world, the not to belittle that word, but in the mom and pop world, I found myself being in a well of hustlers, good people, but the mantra was hustle, hustle, hustle. How
Right,
can I take this one thing, add my whatever 10, 15, 20%, and move on? Yes, there was skill involved. Yes, there were, you know, at the end of the day, there was value addition in the chain, but
right,
not that much. Uh, and that's why some of the things that I wanted to do was things where we get out of this hustler zone that I was in, I was surrounded by, um, and get to very seriously skilled professionals and guys that have spent years and years and years crafting their skills, from architects to builders to designers to land planners to civil engineers. And so it's a whole different from finance
right.
people. In fact, I went back to school. I went back to school for quite a few years
Oh,
to go to study construction finance.
I love this.
Yeah, so you have to skill up. You can't just suddenly one day decide go to a Tony Robbins seminar and say, okay, I'm just going to stop being a hustler and start being a strategist. You have to skill up, and skill up takes sweat and blood and time and money. So to go back to your question, it's not necessarily that one side of the world has a team aspect, the other does not. It's just you're exchanging the mindset of a hustle-based team to a seriously skilled, very, very highly skilled team. And that just improves you, that frees your time and your intellect more than anything else to do things at a higher level. You're not constantly, it's like this. My dad used
Like,
to say, if the level of the problems that you have in life does not upgrade itself every year, then you are not upgrading yourself every year. If I'm dealing with the same problems that I was dealing with last year, or God forbid, 10 years ago, then I'm basically at the same level in life, because life will always have problems. And thankfully, because the day it stops having problem, I'm dead.
right.
But thank the universe that I have problems. I just hope and pray and skill myself up that the universe is throwing a high level of problems at me. And you need skilled individuals, highly skilled individuals to solve highly complex problems, which is where you want to be. Because if you're solving simple problems in life, that's the reward that society and the world is giving you back in terms of money and wealth, which is, simple problems, simple rewards. Complex problems, you know, very, very nice rewards.
Wow. I'm writing this down to make sure I get it down. Man, this is awesome. And this is exactly what I want to hear. I think that there's quite a few people, AG, that fall into my category. I'm, like I said, I'm a few years, like I remember you going through this, and then you vanished for a while in my world. And then you're like, I'm like, whoa. Um, but I think that's something that's been very profound for me in this whole year. All of really the last half of 2023, all of 2024, our goal is just reinventing the person that I am today. Right. And so what does that look like? Writing that out. This is the goal at the end of this year. What does that look like? What do I want it to look like? And what skills am I going to learn and to do to be that? And what I've learned is it's not always money. It's not always a monetary thing, right? Like you said, you have to put blood, sweat, like you're going to put money into it. You're going to transform. And you saying that is so powerful, especially because I hold you to such a high standard, man. I just
I
remember you
appreciate
for
that.
years. I mean, not everyone can do what you guys have done and pack out a room with 800 people. The most we've ever got was 300 people in a room. And I thought that was super cool. That was definitely stressful and fun to do. But at the same time, I'm going, wow, you're willingly saying, I only know so much and I need to level up,
Yep.
right? I need to skill up. And so what was that like? I mean, like that had a bit, this is probably something more powerful for people over their like between 30s and older, where they're going, okay, I need to level up. How did you make that transition? Were you just like, oh, that's not who you are. You're an engineer minded person. It's methodical. How did you go and say, hey, this is the skill I need. I need to go to college for a couple of years.
I mean, it's pretty apparent, right? When you start looking at, see, it's like this. What's the natural progression of real estate? And again, I'm talking about not hobbyist real estate. I'm talking about career real estate. Because a lot of
Right.
folks that you and I have met on these weekend, we call them weekend warriors, right? They listen to some motivational thing somewhere and they'll show up at your seminar. They'll, pop in the mentorship fee or whatever
Right.
that is because they're pumped up. They're hobbyists. Some of them
Right.
will graduate like yourself to become serious entrepreneurs in real estate. But the progression of a real estate career is actually pretty plain Jane for most folks, which is you start with a remodeling career. You learn the basic trades. You then get to single family new construction. You then get to multifamily or some form of commercial remodeling. then you get to commercial new construction, then you get into development, and then the top of the pyramid, you get into lending. I'm not talking
Right.
about hard money lending. I'm talking institutional lending. You develop an institutional lending platform, or somewhere where your development firm and your institutional lending firm are working with each other. So that's the natural progression. So when in 2012 is when we started. Actually, I should start. A lot of people start with wholesaling, and then remodeling, yada yada. So 2009, 2010, we did wholesaling. 2012, 2013, we did a little bit of remodeling. Actually, only one project that was a nightmare. 2012, 2013, actually. 2013, we got into single family new construction. And then 2016, when we started remodeling from commercial, I very quickly realized the same issues I was having in single family remodeling were arriving again. So I, for lack of a better word, I skipped that tranche and went straight to new construction. And that's where you immediately realize what are the skills that you are missing. And fake it till you make it is cool and sexy when you're dealing with couple $100,000 type projects. But when you're dealing with high nine figures, that's not something that's you want to mess with.
No.
You can't fake it until you make it. You either are or you're not. So that's where skilling up comes in, and it's very relatively easy to know what skills you don't have. From financial underwriting to understanding basic guidelines of construction. A lot of guys that today are remodeling, if I ask them basic questions on framing or foundations, how many kinds of foundations there are, a lot of guys don't even know that, which is not cool. So yeah, the path of what skills to have is very self-apparent. I don't think there's much mystery to it if you know what level you want to play at.
Right. And then it's also what skill set you have. For instance, me, I am more of the broker, that front end of deals. So the natural progression is CCIM, right? You go in that direction because that's typically what's good for me. I'm the relational guy. I'm the guy that's doing all those things. I love doing it. I love doing this podcast. I love helping people move on. I love being that guy that's finding a deal and going and looking for the land and doing those other things. But doing those things, I've also had to realize that, and it's definitely last year as I position myself more, I'm noticing some gaps in my own game, stuff I didn't know, stuff I need to learn how to do. And so you can join, and this is the cool part that you're mentioning, you can join masterminds that can help you with your circle, with your proximity to people, but it still comes down to your skill set that you have layered over years to really get there. And it sounds like something that you have, you've methodically looked at it. I stumbled into all of it, but either way, we're all getting there. And so that's
absolutely
really fun.
And sometimes, Gabe, the person that we are the cruelest to is ourselves.
Oh, totally.
We hold ourselves not to a standard that we think or we develop. We hold ourselves to a standard that we think others have developed for us.
Right.
So many times my perception of me is not what I should think of myself, is what I think you think of myself.
Right.
And that's many a times a hindering block, because our paradigms, our success metrics, our rubric, so to say, is not created by us. What does it mean to be successful? What does it mean to have a success in your real estate journey is many a times not something that you have contemplated, discovered on your own. It's something that you've heard on a Joe Rogan show or a Lifestyles Unlimited show, or it is, it's not something that, and those ideas are not really, if you think about it, those ideas many a times are not our own. They've been placed by others. So that's also a very important thing, that no one listening to this should say, oh, this is what the benchmark of success is, or this is what the path to success is. For many people, it could be something very different. It could be finding success and joy in just doing one or two projects, but doing certain kinds of projects that have a certain financial reward for them. I think the common denominator is, are you the kind of person who's willing to roll up the sleeves and say, I am not somebody who's here to treat this as a hobby. I'm here as a person that thinks of real estate like any other form of a serious career, which means I need to invest time, I need to invest money, I need to invest blood and sweat in learning this skill, in skilling myself up. And by the way, you don't have to go to college. I did, because that's, my Indian upbringing, where yeah, higher education is in your core. Maybe it's that, but that doesn't mean anything. It's just that that's a path that I wanted to levy on myself for leveling myself up. It could be a different path for somebody else. Like you said, could be masterminds, could be hiring a personal coach, could be reading, could be these days podcasts. I don't know, but you have to level up.
Right. What is something that you would advise, like you said, when you're talking about leveling up, what is something that you would advise that's kind of something can put into practice today, that you've noticed throughout the years? One of the ones what you mentioned was just learning when to quit quickly. What is something else that you have in your mindset that you've established over the years? Like you said, you've seen all of the grinders come through. You've seen the ones who, most of them aren't around. There's probably 1% left out of all the people that are in the network that are around.
You're probably right. Yeah.
Right. And so what have you seen that's the steadfast, that's the true, that's happened? Is it the fact that they're always pivoting, always moving, always adjusting to the marketplace? What is that core thing that you can say that you've seen in them? I love the fact that you're mentioning like roll your sleeves up, because I think that's at the core. But a lot of people say that until it gets to where like it's time to roll our sleeves up again. And you thought you just did. You thought you just rolled your sleeves up, and now there's another roadblock.
The constant learner, the guy that's constantly learning from their mistakes, right?
Right.
It's very cool and sexy when you're in your teens and 20s, doing that Facebook post saying, man, grinding on, I'm making this mistake and I'm learning from it. But dude, in your 40s, 50s, 60s, if you're in the same mindset, I mean, no offense, but come on.
Yeah.
There has to be a time when you've learned enough. And, there's a time that you put those things into practice.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, in my opinion, I mean, I talked about skilling up, but I think one thing that I've been a big fan of from day one, that was again taught to me by the guys that I learned real estate from, was take your time to develop your deal matrix or your rubric for what you are or what you are or not going to do. So for instance, today we do development, which is essentially we buy land, we develop it into some form of a multifamily development, mixed use sometimes, or pure multifamily sometimes. But what is the criteria for buying that? That's not an easy question to answer. And of course, it's a lot of time and money and effort goes in developing that question. But a lot of people aren't willing to do that. Even when I was when I owned real acquisitions, that's one thing I always asked subscribers, that you're coming into RA, real acquisitions, and putting all this criteria, but what is the objective? What is your deal matrix? What are you wanting to buy? I'll give an example. Without getting into specific numbers, I bought a lot of single family rentals through real acquisitions, and was based on a very simple rule of thumb, which is the ratio of rent divided by the ratio of purchase price.
Right.
And how can I find a deal where, again, relatively simple, but it takes a lot of effort to find neighborhoods where that ratio of rent to purchase price still holds. And that's an example of what I'm trying to say, is that the effort that it takes to define and then stick to your deal rubric, your deal matrix, your deal buy box is very, very, very critical. That's what a lot of people I see that waste their time on, which is just chasing the next shiny object, because they have not spent enough time in developing that core reason or that box of what is it that we should be buying and why.
I heard a guy one time share that he was buying multifamily properties, and I think he got to, I don't know, like 300 something doors. And I was just asking him, this was quite a few years ago, but it stuck with me of I go, okay. And I was like, well, I want to do a couple bigger units and stuff like that. And he goes, okay, how much underwriting have you done? And I'm talking to him about my underwriting and stuff. And he's like, he just kind of chuckled. We stopped with lunch, we're eating Japanese food or whatever. And he's like, Gabe, listen, he's like, you have to underwrite 8 to 10 properties a day. I go, from multifamily? And he's like, from multifamily. And I'm going, he goes like, think about this. If there's a single family house over here, because that's where like I came through that world, and you would say, hey, what about this property? You'd be able to say yes or no pretty quick. I'm like, yeah. He's like, but think about how many hours and time and
Yep.
like the grind of learning those things. And
Yep.
that was like my aha. And I really needed to hear that AG at the moment of going, I got to really take this commercial stuff seriously. I need to really
Yep.
price per foot, right?
Yeah.
What's it, and it's not, it's the same thing as single family in a sense of like price per foot for per area. What area are you? Oh, you're in that area? The price per foot is going to be way different than over here in this area. The price per rent per foot, right, is going to be different in this area than that other area. Some stuff that just baffled me, and I kind of, I was that guy for those who didn't know, who don't know, and I'll be open about this totally. I was that guy going fake it till you make it so you could get to the next place. And then I got to the next place and I'm going, okay, what's next? And I love learning, I love growing. And so this thing started just developing within me. And I started realizing exactly what you said of going, okay, for me to go to the next level, I need someone that's closer by. I need somehow to get more reps in. I need more at
Yep.
bats. I need more of these things. And sometimes it could be a place where you could be a nuance to somebody. So I hired somebody, I end up hiring somebody and going, I need more at bats. I'm just going to start sending these properties to you. And if you can just give me your yes or no and whys, I'll pay you for that. And
Yep.
that was very helpful.
Fantastic strategy. Yeah.
What's that?
It's a fantastic idea.
Right. Like I know I needed it, and I needed to see through some of the gaps and go, well, you know what? I need to get better at my spreadsheet skills, right? And my underwriting skills. And that might be easy for you, man, but it was tough for
No,
me,
no, no.
you
It's
know?
spreadsheet aside, the amount of time it takes to refine and define and create that special spreadsheet for you, you're absolutely right. It's not the easiest thing.
Right. And that takes time.
Oh,
I
tremendous
think that
amount of time. Yeah.
also the marketplace of when people make the transition into whatever they do, whether it's mobile home parks or just something that's bigger than a single family, like a residential.
Yep.
Um, there's this tastiness, right? There's this glitter of saying, hey, I have a spreadsheet for you. Come sign up for me. And you might have not been that guy. I was that guy going, just give me the freaking spreadsheet so I can figure out. I'm going to plug in some numbers. And and I see it all the time now. I go, you know what? If you're just looking for that, you're looking for an easy in and an easy out. Use it as a baseline, but that needs to change so that way you can look at that and go, I
Yeah.
put my name on it.
Yep.
I mean, I can look at your stuff and it might make total sense to you, but I'm going, this is driving me crazy. I have no idea.
You're not taking a look at my stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yours would be pretty complex. So, but yeah, no, that's really good. And so it's putting your stamp on it, right? It's grabbing the skill set, is from what I'm hearing. You're grabbing the time that you're putting into it. And like you said, I had just written down just how much effort it took you to really do that. You think that that is something that's just missing in the culture, or that people don't know, or they just it just takes a lot of energy and they don't know that, hey, you're going to get there one day?
Yeah, frankly, I would imagine that most people that come into our world, I shouldn't say most people, uh, a few people that come into our world that do make it to the other side, the truly greener pastures, I think have done at some point in their life have done some hard work to learn something at a deeper level. And yes, I mean, today, unfortunately, there are a lot of people that we are surrounded with that have not put in any hard work for anything. Um, and they're just cruising by. They're just living average effort, average life, average death. No one remembers you.
Right.
You haven't created anything in your life. But there are a few folks that have whatever skill they've learned through their childhood, adolescent years, youth, middle ages, what have you. They've learned something or many things. And for whatever they did learn, they did put in time and effort and focused energy. And that's the exact same thing that they have to do here. Nothing different. And I think if we can just remind people, like, listen, I don't know, you are a mechanic. You went to mechanic school. You are a
Right.
teacher. You went to teacher school. Just like that. Put in the time to learn the skill set. You cannot logically, I don't know how even that happened. And I've been guilty of that too, because I've done that too foolishly, where you do these 3, 4, 5 day seminars to learn and then to teach, and you expect that people coming out of it will be able to do, 100, 200, 300 grand deals. And we promise that stupidity to people too, is that, you take my 5 day course and you can make 100 grand next year. I mean, come on. Why would you? I understand that as a guru, you probably would peddle that, but at some point in time, we need to be intelligent enough to realize, come on, you can't do that. You
Right.
have to level up, you have to skill up, you have to learn things.
Right. Man, that's the essence of this conversation, and I love every bit of it because I can see it coming out of you too. Are you sharing this with others? Or are you just like head down in your business, or are you at a place where like you've learned this nugget? Because I definitely can see it coming out of you right now of just going, hey, what are you doing right now that's helping you get to the next level that's consistent? Are you starting to share this with more? And it's just, have you noticed that it just comes out of you more and more lately?
Um, I apologize. When you say share, what do you mean?
Just sharing the skilling up, the level up, the putting in that time to roll up your sleeves. Are you starting to notice it more now than you did, let's say, during the real acquisition days, where like everyone had an opportunity to do stuff, just like you said? And are you sharing that with other investors or other people that you're seeing now? Is it something that just comes out of you all the time?
Well, so a little deviation, or I guess a tangent to your tangential answer to your question, which is, I believe, in most cases, Gabe, you can either be a person that has a lot of attention on himself or have a lot of attention on your work. You
Right.
cannot be that person that is able to pay attention to your work and to yourself at the same time. And at least in the last 10 years, and probably for the next 10 years, I want to pay attention to my work, not to myself.
Nice.
And if you pay attention to your work and less attention to yourself, I think in the end, when the journey of your work is done, when you have accomplished what you need to accomplish, that's the time that you turn back, and then you can, at that time, focus or take that attention again, not to yourself, but take that attention to somebody else. Because a lot of teaching, a lot of messaging, a lot of do this, don't do that, be this way, don't be that way, I believe is not necessarily about adding value to others, even though it's very sexy and cool to get up on Facebook and say, oh, I like helping people, I want to add value to you. But
Right.
it's basically, saying, hey, listen to me, I'm important. I've done something, and I want you to have a message to me, that I have a message that you need to listen to. And I believe if you do that, or if you're too focused on that, I'm on Facebook, you're on Facebook.
Yeah.
I'm sure you see this all the time, where people are posting life messages about how you should live your life, or how you should do this and how you should do that.
Yeah, it's
And
definitely becoming
essentially,
more prevalent now than ever, like ever. I'm like,
yeah, is that well?
I don't have that many
Okay,
profound
great.
things
I'm
that come to
glad you
me.
made. I'm glad you made. I don't know, $50,000 in your wholesale deal. But why are you giving somebody advice on how to live their life? What has that got to do with
Yeah,
this? Just
yeah,
and again, to me, it's that the answer to your question is that, am I sharing this message with anyone else? I honestly don't have the desire or the time or any inclination right now, because I want to focus on my work. And when I'm done with my work, by God's grace, in 10 years or whenever, then I can turn that attention and then give that attention to others if they want it.
that's so
I never want to
powerful.
be that person that's, getting up on Facebook and giving life advice unless somebody's asking for it.
That is so powerful what you're saying. I think that that's a missing ingredient to, and that's something I didn't know until I get to my 30s. I'm 43 now, and it wasn't until I got to my
You're
30s.
cool looking 43, man.
What's that?
You're cool looking 43.
Cool looking. That hopefully that means I look younger.
Yeah, you do. You look fantastic. I can tell you've been working out.
Thank
a
you.
lot.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I'll change my shirt now next time I do a podcast. But that's something, and so that's one of the things that we do with the Power Play podcast. Like, I just want the honest truth from people who've been through, because whenever I was younger, I didn't have that guidance, right? I mean, I some people know my story, but I used to be a youth pastor. I used to do all these other things,
Wow.
and it gave a lot. I did all this stuff in my younger years, which is great. I don't regret any of my life at all. I love every bit of it. But I think that there's an era of our generation, of just the generation in general, that's trying to find out, what they're doing in life, what their business is, what's their model. Okay, this doesn't work. And not really understanding that, like you said, you had a concrete company for a while. Well, you're just being really an entrepreneur. You're being a business owner. And that's really who we are first. And if we approach, this is specifically about real estate, but if we approach our businesses as a business owner and entrepreneur, we have to look at it differently, right? We have to look at it of the deep work that you mentioned. And I really love that phrase that you're saying, that the deep work, I don't think many people put into. I've changed my whole schedule, AG. My body's changing, my life is changing. And, I'll share with our the people that are listening and stuff. I love to help them go, hey, look, as those things change, you have to change. I'm going to bed way earlier, but I'm waking up way earlier also, because I just love the sweet moment in the morning. I probably get my full day done before 10, and I'm like, wow, that's a whole bunch. And then I'm making the calls, then I'm putting out the fires and dealing with the other stuff. But I got the real core thing that's important to me done. Before, in the our old hustler world, I don't know if that was possible. That's for sure. So, but I really enjoy what you're saying about that. Man, I appreciate your time. This is key. This is huge. I know that you're giving a lot of value. Can you share a little bit about your business, about what you guys been doing now, and what you've been developing now, and some of the creative stuff you're doing before we hop off?
Sure. Really, it's no creative stuff, man. It's plain Jane multifamily residential mixed-use development. We are buying since 2016, we've been doing it, continue to do it, which is buying Class A locations and developing Class B product on those Class A locations. That's a mantra. So we'll buy very, very nice corners or very, very nice Class A locations. Residential, that means zone to like top notch, top of the top of the top schools. In commercial, it just means corners with very high vehicles per day count, as simple as that. And in those corners, we're developing a Class B product. So we can, which is built smarter, because in order to compete with Class A, we keep a cost basis down by developing a Class B product, and we're able to compete with those guys because our cost basis is less, and hence we can charge less rent and outbid and outcompete the competition, the least competition, I mean, in those locations, be it residential or be it commercial. That's it.
And what is the timeline for some of those? 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, it depends on the size of the project. Anywhere from 3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years. So if someone's, if someone has land or whatnot, how can someone help you by saying, hey, look, they're going to send something to you. We'll put your stuff in the show notes. But as far as your contact stuff, but what is something that you're saying, hey, send me more of these type of properties? What is it? Just vacant land, or is it land that could be cleaned up and, demo the old buildings, or what?
Well, I mean, this year, what we're looking for is very different than what we were looking for last year. I just feel that we're a little too overexposed in multifamily. So this year, we're not doing any multifamily deals. We're sticking to classic retail spaces.
Got it.
And yeah, if you have retail locations around the greater Houston area, which is, take 99 and just draw a big ass circle around Houston, anywhere inside or right outside that circle, if you have anywhere from 2 to 30 acres of these locations on signalized corners, please share us. Please share those with us. We just request that if you have a little bit of commercial background, look for locations that have a vehicle per day count of higher than 15,000. So 15,000 vehicles per day and up, signalized corners, take 99 and draw a circle. And of course, we don't want any flood zones. Do not want to deal with any of that.
Stuff that we talk about in Houston quite a bit.
Not enough.
Man, I appreciate you. Thank you for joining us on this podcast. Guys, if you want to get a hold of us, I'm going to put all the stuff in the show notes. Thanks a lot for joining us. Like, share, post it, share it out to people, and listen to AGs talk about some awesome stuff. We'll talk to you guys later. Peace.